A clay tablet sits in the British Museum right now, catalogue number UETV81, and inscribed on it in cuneiform script is a furious one-star review of a copper merchant named Ea-Nasir. It was written around 1750 BCE. That makes it nearly 3,800 years old, and it is, without exaggeration, the oldest customer complaint letter ever found. But here's what nobody expects. That single angry tablet wasn't alone. Archaeologists found an entire collection of complaints against this one man. Ea-Nasir wasn't just bad at his job. He might be the worst businessman who ever lived, and the consequences of his terrible reputation rippled across almost 4 millennia in ways no one could have predicted. To understand how one shady copper deal echoed across thousands of years, we need to rewind to ancient Ur. Not the Ur you're picturing from a textbook illustration, the real Ur. A thriving, loud, ambitious trade hub in what is now southern Iraq during the Old Babylonian period. This was a city where commerce was everything. Merchants sailed down the Persian Gulf to a land called Dilmun, modern-day Bahrain, to trade textiles, silver, and grain for one of the most valuable commodities of the Bronze Age: copper. Copper was everything. It was what steel is to us. You needed it for tools, for weapons, for construction, for religious vessels. A city without copper was a city falling behind. And the merchants who controlled the copper trade held enormous power and social status. Ea-Nasir was one of these merchants. He operated out of Ur, and at some point in his career, he was even involved in official trade missions on behalf of the palace. He wasn't some back-alley hustler. He was, at least on paper, a respectable businessman operating at a high level. And that's exactly what makes what happened next so remarkable. Because Ea-Nasir, despite every advantage, despite every opportunity, apparently could not stop delivering garbage copper and treating his customers like they didn't matter. Enter a man named Nani. We don't know much about Nani beyond what he wrote, but what he wrote is extraordinary. His complaint to Ea-Nasir is one of the most beautifully direct pieces of anger ever committed to clay. Nani had sent his servant to Ea-Nasir to purchase copper ingots. What he received was, in his words, not good copper. It was substandard, the wrong grade. And when Nani tried to resolve the issue, when he sent messengers to get his money back or receive the correct shipment, Ea-Nasir apparently treated those messengers with contempt. He sent them away through enemy territory, he showed them disrespect, and he still kept Nani's silver. So Nani did what any fed-up customer would do. He sat down, picked up a stylus, grabbed a wet clay tablet, and wrote the most detailed, seething complaint he could compose. He listed every grievance. He named every slight. He pointed out that other merchants from Dilmun had offered him better copper and that he had refused them out of loyalty to Ea-Nasir, loyalty that Ea-Nasir had now spit on. The letter closes with Nani essentially saying, "You will hear from me again, and next time I will personally inspect every single ingot before I hand over a single piece of silver," the ancient Mesopotamian equivalent of "I want to speak to your manager," combined with "I will never do business with you again." Now, one angry letter between two merchants almost 4,000 years ago should have vanished into dust. Clay crumbles, cities fall, civilizations collapse. The odds of any single document surviving from 1750 BCE are astronomically small. But this one didn't just survive, it was found alongside others. And that detail changes the entire story. When archaeologists excavated the ruins of Ur in the 1920s and 1930s, led by Sir Leonard Woolley, they uncovered Ea-Nasir's house, his actual house. And inside it, they found not just Nani's letter, but a collection of similar tablets. Multiple complaints from multiple customers, all aimed at the same man. Think about what that means. Ea-Nasir kept these tablets. He received complaint after complaint about his bad copper, his dishonest dealings, his rudeness, and instead of destroying them, he stored them in his home. Scholars have debated why. Some think he kept them as records for legal purposes in case any disputes went to formal arbitration. Others think he genuinely didn't care. He just tossed them in a room and kept selling substandard copper. There were also tablets suggesting Ea-Nasir had financial troubles, that he owed debts, that his business was slowly deteriorating. The picture that emerges is of a man who started with legitimate credentials, and then, through a combination of greed, laziness, or incompetence, burned every professional relationship he had. His house itself tells a story. Archaeologists noted that over time, Ea-Nasir appeared to convert parts of his once respectable residence into a shop or workspace, possibly because his fortunes were declining. The man who once traded on behalf of the palace may have ended his career hawking goods from his own living room. And here's the first domino falling. Ea-Nasir's decision to keep those complaint tablets, rather than smash them or throw them away, is the reason any of this survives. If he had destroyed Nanny's letter, we would never know his name, his laziness, or his arrogance, or whatever impulse made him hold on to those records, is the singular reason he exists in our memory today. Those tablets sat underground for roughly 3,700 years. Ur declined. Babylon rose and fell. The Persians came. Alexander the Great marched through. The Romans never even made it that far east. Islam spread across Mesopotamia. The Mongols burned Baghdad. The Ottoman Empire held the region for centuries. The British drew new borders after World War I, and the whole time Ea-Nasir's complaint tablets lay in the rubble of his house, baked hard by time and desert heat, waiting. When Woolley's team unearthed them, they were catalogued and shipped to the British Museum, where they sat in relative obscurity for decades. Cuneiform scholars translated them. Academic papers were written. But outside of Assyriology departments, almost nobody knew about Ea-Nasir. He was a footnote in a footnote. Then came the internet. Sometime around 2015, the story of Ea-Nasir began circulating online. Someone posted a translation of Nanny's complaint, and it struck a nerve, because the letter doesn't read like an ancient artifact. It reads like a modern one-star Amazon review. The frustration is timeless. The passive-aggressive tone is universal. Nanny's outrage feels exactly like the outrage you'd feel if you ordered premium headphones and received dollar store earbuds. The internet did what the internet does. Ea-Nasir became a meme. People started making fan art. They wrote jokes about him. Someone created a satirical Yelp page for his copper business. Reddit threads exploded with people roasting a man who had been dead for nearly 4,000 years. Artists on Tumblr drew him as a cartoon villain. Twitter accounts were dedicated to his crimes against commerce. But it went deeper than jokes. Ea-Nasir became a strange kind of cultural touchstone. He proved something people instinctively feel, but rarely see confirmed with evidence: that human nature doesn't change. That a scam artist in 1750 BCE operated with the same playbook as a scam artist today. That customer service has always been terrible, and customers have always been furious about it. Ea-Nasir connected the modern world to the ancient one in a way that no museum exhibit or history lecture ever could. He now has dedicated communities online. People make Ea-Nasir pottery, Ea-Nasir t-shirts, Ea-Nasir stickers. There are TikToks about him with millions of views. A man who cheated his customers out of quality copper in the Bronze Age has more name recognition today than most ancient kings. And all of it, every meme, every joke, every piece of fan art, traces back to one small decision. Nanny chose to write his anger down, and Ea-Nasir chose not to throw it away. Two tiny human choices cascading across 38 centuries, turning a petty trade dispute into one of history's most unexpectedly enduring stories. There's something genuinely profound buried underneath the comedy. The vast majority of ancient people are completely lost to us. Kings with massive monuments are forgotten. Generals who won decisive battles are nameless. Priests, poets, mothers, builders, all gone without a trace. But Ea-Nasir survives, not because he was great, not because he was powerful, because he was terrible at his job and someone was angry enough to write about it. His immortality isn't a reward, it's an accident created by failure. That should make you think about what actually lasts. The things we assume will be remembered, our achievements, our victories, those might crumble. But the weird, the petty, the deeply human moments of frustration and conflict, those might be the things that survive longer than any monument. Ea-Nasir's bad copper outlasted the entire Babylonian Empire. So here's the question I want you to fight about in the comments. If archaeologists dug up your house 4,000 years from now, what's the one message, text, email, or review they'd find that would define your entire legacy? Think about it. And if ancient Mesopotamian drama is the kind of history you want more of, subscribe so you don't miss the next one.